The World War I era King Kong adventure is back to kill more soldiers in gruesome ways. We're going to discuss King Kong, The Great War #5 from Dynamite Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of King Kong, The Great War #5 from Dynamite Comics. This issue whittles down the survivor count to 3 when the captain and his 2 surviving men scale Skull Mountain to escape Kong's wrath. Before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated, and make sure to stay tuned to the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. This issue is written by Alex Cox, with art by Tommaso Bianchi, colors by James Devlin, letters by Taylor Esposito, and the main cover, cover A, is drawn by Jay Lee with June Chung. Previously in issue number 4, the captain and his crew ran through a large field of tall grass trying to get to Skull Mountain because they believe it's the high ground, and that gives them the opportunity to escape Kong's pursuit and also potentially send off some flares where they could get attention of, on the off chance, a passing ship for rescue. Unfortunately, as they ran through the fields, they got attacked by any number of dangers that are resident on Skull Island, including raptor-sized dinosaurs and all kinds of strange, creepy crawlies that come out of the muck and the mud to pull them down. Now, we return to the series after a 4-month hiatus. It's unclear why the series took a break for 4 months, but we're back. And in King Kong, The Great War #5, we return to the captain and his men, with 5 of them in total, running through the fields and now reaching a sort of a muddy, marshy swamp area that's near the base of Skull Mountain. They encountered this patch of ground that it has many, many bones in it, some of which are sticking out of the ground, some of them which are laying on top, and they recognize that there have been other humans on the island besides just themselves, because some of the bones are clearly human skulls, and some of them are quite old. When they start poking around in the mud to find out who's been there and if they left any tools or anything they can use, suddenly the mucky, muddy, marshy ground starts bubbling up, and these large, gigantic maggot-type creatures start attacking the men. They try to shoot and they try to stab their way through the swarm of maggoty monsters that are about the size of small cows or very large dogs. And unfortunately, it takes at least 2 of the men down. So by the time they manage to fight their way out of the group, there's only 3 left: the captain and 2 of his men. They begin to scale Skull Mountain to try and reach the openings at the top, where maybe they can take some refuge, shoot off some flares, maybe start a rescue fire to get some help. And they make it to the top right as the sun is going down. They're hoping, of course, that they can also escape the attention of Kong, who has been sort of chasing them, but from a distance. He hasn't been trying too hard, but he's just sort of curious at the same time as pursuing them. And as the sun goes down, the moon comes up, Kong climbs Skull Mountain to arrive at the entrance of the mouth where the men have taken refuge. The men grow deeper into the mountain, thinking that maybe they can find some way to escape, looking for an alternate exit so that they can get away from Kong but hide deeper inside the mountain. They believe they found some kind of entrance or exit or moonlight, but it turns out they've just been going in circles in the dark. One of the soldiers, sick of being pursued and basically at his breaking point, decides to charge Kong with his automatic rifle, shooting. Kong grabs him up and chows down, and so now there's only 2 left. There's the captain and the one of his soldiers is left. They make it past Kong to another side of the entrance, and they see in the distance fires burning down at the base of the mountain, near what looks to be a giant wall. So now we have this first inkling that there are other inhabitants on the island, and now the soldiers believe that if they can make it to some kind of civilization, maybe they can find refuge. And of course, their only action, because they're high up on the mountain and Kong is trying to climb through the mountain to get to them, is to jump and to run. And that's where we end the issue, recognizing that this is the penultimate issue, which will lead into the finale coming next month. So what do we like about King Kong, The Great War #5 from Dynamite Comics? In every sense of the word, this series has been a horror comic. These men are being relentlessly pursued by King Kong, and as they're running, they're getting attacked on all sides from all kinds of bizarre, imaginative, creepy, terrifying monsters. Alex Cox has done a great job of setting Skull Island up as an island of horrors that no one would ever want to spend any significant time on. So, if you want a horror type comic, but with a familiar character in King Kong, who just over the course of decades worth of cinema may not necessarily have been portrayed as a monster in the true horror sense, this comic goes a long way toward building up that atmosphere of dread and hopelessness and exhaustion that comes from getting constantly attacked on all sides, both from Kong and from an assortment of creepy crawlies that are dispersed throughout the island. Plus, this issue does set up that the soldiers are potentially going to find the natives who live on the island and maybe reveal something about how they fit in the historical context, because the story is set right within the context of World War One. So it'll be interesting to see if these soldiers play a hidden part of Kong's history that we know that comes after that fact, and then just sort of the story we never knew was always in plain sight. What didn't we like about King Kong: The Great War #5? Honestly, what's lacking is the plot. It's paper thin. You basically take the men, you start them from the issue 1, and you just have them run a gauntlet of the island, encountering different monsters, different horrors, different traps, different things that are designed to kill them, and eventually it just whittles the crew down further and further and further as they move along. There's not much to it. There is effectively almost no plot. It is just basically get to A, from point A to B, and then survive. And so in that way, the number of issues kind of becomes repetitive, or it's not that there's an imagination in how the soldiers are dying or getting killed off. It's just there's nothing to it beyond get from A to B and survive, which is fine, I guess, at a basic level, but there's not much story there other than, how far will they survive at the end or not? That's really the only open question you're asking yourselves. And based upon the story that we have so far, the answer is probably not. And do you really learn anything? Did anything change? Did it somehow expand the lore or mythology of King Kong in any way? Well, if it ends the way it looks like it's going to end, the answer will probably be no. So the kills are imaginative, but there's, again, no story here other than just survive, which isn't much of a story to go on. Let's talk about the art. Tommaso Bianchi's art is moody, it's dark, it's grim, it's hopeless, and that's exactly a positive, exactly the right thing that you want, and a positive for the story that Alex Cox is telling. You want to feel the weight of the island on you. You want to feel like the island is almost enveloping you and smothering you with its darkness and its danger, and you want to feel the depression that there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, that you just need to give up all hope. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. That's what Bianchi's art does for you in this issue, and also as a series as a whole. So even though it's a little lacking in details in some of the pages, and there's almost an over-reliance on shadow and amorphous shapes and silhouettes to get you through, it's very effective for conveying the darkness and the almost depressive nature of the horror that the soldiers encounter. So it's a pretty effective set of visuals to get the story across and to get the point across for the type of horror that Cox is presenting. Final thoughts. King Kong: The Great War #5 is dark. It's moody. It's almost hopeless in the sense that it's trying to portray a horror story where there's nowhere left to go, there's nowhere left to run, and all you can do is pray that you can survive. On that point, as far as projecting that mood and that atmosphere, this issue is highly effective. On the downside, if you look at the last 4 or 5 issues in total, which is almost the entire miniseries, there's a paper thin plot, and each issue is almost repetitive in nature. You take the men, you put them through a series of horrors, and you see how many left are left at the end of the issue, which is fine if that's all you want to see is interesting ways for people to die, but plot-wise, there's not much to it. Therefore, we're going to give King Kong the Great War number 5 from Dynamite Comics a 6.8 out of 10. Most of that is due to the art and the atmosphere, but any negatives are due to just the lack of plot and actual story that's taking place. What do you think about King Kong comics? Does this one float your boat? Do you prefer your King Kong's stories a little bit more adventurous, or do you like the fact that this is portrayed much more solidly in with a foundation of horror? I want to know your opinions. I want to know your thoughts. And do you like these types of kaiju-sized monster comics? Let us know in the comment section. Otherwise, please stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.